Hello and welcome. It is really nice to be with you on another sunny Friday afternoon. If you are listening live, thank you for being here. Get busy in the comments, share your thoughts, takeaways as we go or when we watch the replay. And if you are tuning in on Spotify, please feel free to get in touch, share on Facebook, follow and subscribe. I am here to support you via the Yoga Teacher Collaborative podcast. My name is Laura Green. I am a yoga teacher, a teacher trainer, a business mentor, and an author with one overarching passion and mission, and that is to help yoga teachers to thrive, yes, in your business, but also on a much deeper, soulful, philosophical, spiritual level. Today, the topic goes across both. We are looking at leadership in yoga teaching and your business. And we're covering this now as this is so in the forefront of my mind as I'm bringing together Devotion. Devotion is the 9-month postgraduate yoga teacher training looking at your spiritual practice, your teaching, and seeing your business as an extension of your spiritual practice. And leadership is so key in that it is the end result. When you are developing your personal practice, when you are leading for the authenticity and integrity of your personal practice, and then you are seeing your business through the lens of devotional leadership. This is where the really soul-aligned work is happening. So I'm so delighted to be exploring the topic of leadership with you today, and really through that lens of devotional leadership. So most yoga teachers probably would never see themselves or consider themselves to be leaders. It makes me feel uncomfortable. And that's what always interests me. When I feel uncomfortable, I am resistant to something, I know there is work, there is healing, there is exploration to be done there. Because the truth is, if you are leading a 60-minute yoga class, you're leading. If you're teaching retreats, workshops, you're creating a community, you are leading. So the question isn't, are yoga teachers leaders? The question is, where are you leading your students? And have you thought about that? Do you want to go out into the woods? I live in the New Forest. It's 140,000 acres of woodland. Do you want to go out into those woods and just bumble around? Or would you like to go there with someone who has a mission to take you somewhere, to take you on a journey, to take you to this magnificent tree, to take you to this clearing, to take you to whatever? But would you like to go there with a purpose and guidance? We'll learn stuff through bumbling along. Of course we will. We'll make discoveries, but we'll have much more impact if we know where we are going. And I'm sure you can all think of moments, conversations, connections that you have had with your yoga students when they've said, that story you told has completely changed the way I look at everything. Or that quote you read, it completely affected how I interact with my family. Or that breathing technique you taught was transformative for me when I was experiencing stress and anxiety. So we all know the impact of what we share, but if we could have more considered vision behind that, think what a journey you could take your students on. And it is about vision. And I think the ick with leadership is because we have been taught to think that leadership is authority. We have leadership modeled to us constantly. In work, in politics, we are having leadership modeled. It's often not modeled well, because often, especially in a workplace, people end up in leadership roles because they are highly skilled at the task they were doing. So they get promoted. not because they're a great leader. They have been trained in management and leadership. No, it's kind of like, you're good at your job, so why don't you lead other people in doing that same job? So understandably, there's many examples in the world of poor leadership, and leadership being about authority, about being managing other people and telling them what to do. But that is not devotional leadership. Devotional leadership, which is the absolute crux of what we're exploring in the postgraduate training, is vision. It is not authority. It is vision. Devotional leadership is often subtle. It can be invisible. It is the work we do behind the scenes on ourself that then ripples through into everything we do. So whether it's a movement you're leading, whether it's a community you're leading, you are shaping beliefs, and you can have a role in shaping the culture, shaping the world that we wish to see. So what is my first tip for stepping into your devotional leadership, stepping into the responsibility of that, because you're leading a journey whether you know it or not. So let's step into the responsibility. And it is to step back, to zoom out. It is very easy to think about our classes, our workshops, our retreats in isolation as a single transaction. What am I teaching in this class today? Where am I hosting this retreat? What is the next workshop I'm going to put on? We think of them often in the singular, isolated, transactional, rather than zooming out and considering the much bigger picture. What is the journey I am guiding this month? Let's just zoom out to that. What is the journey you are guiding this month? And that might mean that your classes this month have one overarching theme, but not necessarily. It could be different themes that are serving the one vision. So say the vision is this month, I would like to inspire students to have more loving awareness in their relationship to their body. That is your subtle behind the scenes vision. Yes, that could be a class theme for the whole month, but it could also be how you're then exploring a class through myth, how you're then exploring a different class through the physicality of asana. Could be how you've got another class on meditation. So your overarching theme for the month can be obvious, or it can be more subtle. Leadership and vision is often subtle behind the scenes. So what is the journey I am leading my students on this month? Then zoom out. What is the journey I am leading my students on this year? Now, as many of you know, I'm also an astrologer, and every year I look at the year ahead. I look at what is the energy, what are we going to be navigating, what is coming up, and I do retreats, workshops, webinars, all around inspiring people with this is the astrology for 2025. But then behind the scenes, as I know we're going to navigate those ups and downs, what do I think my students need to get through this year? Now, 2025 is a year of rapid change, so nervous system regulation. That's a real overarching theme behind the scenes for my students this year. But zoom out even more than that. What is the journey you are guiding your students on in the next 5 years? Now, you know when you go for a job interview and they ask you that question, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? Oh my, I roll my eyes so hard at that question. And my answer is always, I don't know. But if I'm learning and growing, I'm good with that. But I still think this is a valuable question for us now, because You want loyal students that are with you in your community for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Many of my students have been with me 10 to 15 years. I am not the same person I was 15 years ago. They are not the same people were 15 years ago. We are all on a journey and we are a community. So what is the journey that we are going on together? And planning that out really starts you to see your overall vision and mission. A real example of this is, for me, I serve my yoga community of students, and obviously I serve you as yoga teachers. And it's different. I think, what is my mission and vision for my yoga students? What is my mission and vision for yoga teachers? So to use the example of teachers, this upcoming course, it starts in March, Devotion, the postgraduate teacher training. I have wanted to host this training for about 4 years, but we had to go on a journey to get there. Because it is a postgraduate training, it is for people that wish to now teach beyond asana, to teach beyond the physicality, and to really start exploring the spirituality, the depth, the philosophy, the truly transformative soul level deep practices of yoga. But it's an expensive course. It's a whole 9 months of working together. I knew I needed to journey my community of teachers towards that. So if you look back, I start with you're brand new to teaching yoga, 12-week fast track to full mentorship course. I still teach that now. It goes into websites and marketing and customer service. It doesn't light my soul on fire, but it is a key first step into the journey to getting yoga teachers to start to build their business, to build their community, to build their skills, so that then in a few years' time, you and your community are ready to go, now what? What is the layer 10 beneath this? And then after that fast track to full, which gets people out there teaching, I've been drip feeding over the last few years, shorter courses with depth and philosophy. We did the chakras on earth, we did the philosophy in movement. And these are slowly deepening your awareness of the philosophy and spirituality of yoga, so that when the course devotion comes, you're like, yes, I'm ready for that. So think of that in your students. In the next 5 years, what is the journey you wish to take your students on? It's very similar for me. I want to take my students into deeper philosophical practices. So that starts with, okay, classes and workshops on tasters of philosophical themes, then retreats that have a more soul philosophical depth, then a 6-month course on the immersion into yoga. And then there's a new course coming up for my students called Sadhana. So what is the journey? Where do you want to get your students to? For me, it's the spiritual depths of yoga. But I can't start there. I've got to meet you at the beginning of the path and we walk together. So zooming out is the first thing I would like you to do, and think, what is the journey I would like to go on? We journey together, go on and take my students in the next 5 years. If 5 years is too big, maybe if you're newer to teaching, cut it back to 3, cut it back to 2. Then why? We have to know the why of that journey. What is the purpose for this journey? Personally for you, what do you get out of leading this journey? And it can't just be transactional. What is the nourishment and depth that your soul gets from leading that journey? Then personally, what is the purpose for this journey for your students? How is their life going to be different? What are they going to learn from it? How is their life going to be enriched from this journey? And then when it comes to leadership, it's one step bigger than that. What is the purpose for this culturally? Because culture is not shaped by governments. Culture is shaped by communities. Communities are shaped by the individuals in that community. And as yoga teachers, we know first and foremost, we are community builders, and communities shape culture. So, what is the culture that you wish to see in the world? Why is this culturally important? And culture is always changing. And especially now, 2025 is seeing rapid change, mainly led by AI, but rapid change. Our world will look so different by 2027, by 2030. By 2035, it's going to be unrecognizable. Culture will change with that. So as cultures change quickly, you always need to know, what is the urgency of your work? Why is this culturally important now? And I'm so clear on that. And that clarity comes from your personal practice, from your sadhana, which is the bedrock of devotion. I know that my work culturally is, I feel that culturally we have lost our spiritual connection, and that is eroding our connection to the universe we live in, the planet we live in, and our connection to one another. As we move progressively faster and faster into more and more technology, we run the risk of being more disconnected spiritually than ever. But our culture has only ever really had mirrored to it spirituality through the lens of organized religion. And that isn't open or accessible to everyone. Many people crave, I believe, even if they don't know it, a spiritual practice outside of organized religion. The spiritual teachings and philosophy of yoga has changed the way I see and interact with the world. That is the cultural journey I wish to continue to deepen for myself and go on with my students. And I feel it is culturally important and urgent now, as we're coming into a rapid growth of technological change, that we stay connected to our spiritual sovereign self. I'm really clear on what is the purpose of my work culturally, how in my small community is it going to make a difference? And why is it important and urgent now? Now, that wasn't always my mission and vision, because I have changed and you will change. You know, I've been teaching for 15 years and practicing for 24. And I know really when I was beginning to teach, yoga brought me home to my body. I'd been really disconnected and waging war with my body. And that was my vision. That was my mission when I first started to teach, to bring people home to their body with respect, love, and kindness. And I can see now how that was the beginning of the journey that I've gone on. And now that's changed my vision, and that's the journey I'm taking next, because we're always journeying. We're always evolving, and you follow the journey just a little bit ahead of the journey that you then guide. Silly example, I took myself on a walk last week in the New Forest, one I hadn't done before. I looked at a map, I was nervous about whether I'd get it right, I got lost a couple of times, and then this week I guided two friends on the same journey, knowing that I would felt confident that I wasn't going to get them lost because I'd done it myself, but also the path was still unfamiliar, so I still went in with beginner's eyes at what things I would learn on this walk from the new companions that were walking it with me. So I love that about teaching, that I need to have wandered the path a little bit first. So I know I'm guiding you in the right direction. I'm not going to get you lost, and I know what I'm talking about. But I still want to be learning on that journey as I then have my students accompany me on it. Okay. All right, to breather. Okay, I actually think that was a lot of what I wanted to say. That leadership isn't about authority, it is about vision. Why is this personally important, culturally important? What is the journey we're going on? Why is that journey important now? And that means you care deeply. And that is a big difference between the poorly shown, modeled leadership that we might have experienced in the world, and real devotional leadership is simply the I care deeply. You need to care deeply about the journey your students are going on and about the cultural significance of that. And I know you do. It's just zooming out and seeing your role and the impact of your I care deeply. Another way of thinking of this is, what do you want your success to look like from your business? And knowing that that success is rooted in the success you contribute for others. So what do you want for your students? That, if you're not quite sure about your mission and vision, zoom out to that. What do you wish for your students? If you care deeply, and I know you do, what do you wish for your students? And how can your teachings support them in that wish? And their success in that wish, that is what leads to your success in your business. Okay. So I hope that was food for thought today. I would like you to answer some questions. You can either think these through in your mind, voice note me on them, you can type it out, you can journal, but I would really like you to think on these questions, and I would love to hear your thoughts on these questions. So the first one is, who are you being? Because your leadership is rooted in you, and who are you being? Who are you behind the scenes? Teddy's come to say hello, my lord, again. You're very disruptive, Teddy. Who are you being? What is the journey I am leading? What is the community I am building? And what is the movement we, the community, are shaping? So that's where we're getting it to. Devotional leadership is movements that shape culture. But that comes back to, who am I being? What is the journey I'm leading? What is the community I'm building? Because movements are shaped by community. And what is the movement we, the community, are driving? Then why is this relevant personally? Why is this relevant culturally? And why is this important now? Thank you for exploring with me leadership in yoga teaching and business. And remember, this doesn't matter whether you have been teaching 1 month or 15 years. It is not about authority. It is about the vision you have for what you are sharing right now. If this is relevant for you and resonating with you, this is the work of devotion. And I would love to work with you in that container. It is a 9-month postgraduate yoga teacher training with 3 distinct pillars. The first pillar is your personal practice, your sadhana. The second pillar is your teaching. How are you teaching beyond the surface level of asana? What are you teaching? What is the vision? How are you sharing that? How are you using storytelling in sequencing to support your vision? How are you sharing lesser known practices of yoga that have so much spiritual merit? How are you sharing mantra, Sanskrit, mudra that is reflecting culturally the roots of yoga? Then the final pillar, devotional business. How are you seeing your business as an extension of your spiritual practice? It starts in March. It is a blend of 3 in-person intensives and then multiple sessions per month online. So it supports you traveling for the intensives and then gathering online for the regular monthly containers. Okay, my darlings, I will see you very soon. If you have any questions about devotion, message me, or you can find it under my website, lauragreenyoga.co.uk, teach training, and then devotion is in the drop down menu. And I will see you next week, my loves. Bye for now.